She was rejected while carrying twins. The Alpha King says now he has 3 treasures. The wind whispered through the black pines that surrounded the kingdom of Urendor, carrying with it the scent of snow and hidden danger. The full moon hung low, casting silver light on the frozen landscape, and for those who dared walk in its glow, the forest seemed alive, watching. Within this ancient land, where magic lingered like a ghost, ruled Kale, the Alpha King. His power was unmatched, his presence commanding, and yet his heart was shrouded in an invisible prison, forged by a centuries-old curse. Selene moved through the shadows of the forest, her cloak heavy with frost, her steps careful on the thin ice. She was no ordinary noblewoman. Her lineage carried secrets that even she had only begun to understand. But tonight, she was not thinking of bloodlines or magic. Her thoughts were consumed with one man, Kale, the Alpha King, the father of her unborn twins. The memory of that night tormented her. The moon had been full just like tonight, when Kale had taken her hand, his eyes burning with a mixture of desire and something she could not name. For a fleeting moment, they had shared a connection that felt eternal. But the world of kings and curses did not allow for fleeting happiness. When Kale discovered she carried his children, his response had been cruel, sharp as the edge of a silver dagger. "You are unworthy of my bloodline," he had said before turning away, leaving her trembling in the cold, clutching the secret life growing within her. Selene's hand rested instinctively on her stomach. The twins stirred, tiny life beating quietly against the world's cruelty. She whispered to them, though no sound passed beyond her lips. "I will protect you," she promised, her voice breaking with a mixture of fear and determination. "Even if the father refuses, I will not fail you." The forest was dense, older than any living memory. Trees twisted like ancient sentinels, and the snow beneath her feet seemed to swallow sound. She moved carefully, aware that the world beyond the royal walls was not kind to women alone, let alone women carrying the future of a kingdom. Suddenly, a shadow moved ahead. Selene froze, her heart hammering. The figure that emerged from the mist was not human, not entirely. Eyes that glowed like molten gold peered at her from the darkness. A wolf, massive and regal, stepped into the moonlight, its fur black as midnight. "Who walks in the forest unbidden?" The voice was not heard with the ears but felt deep in her bones. Selene's fingers tightened on her cloak. "I am Selene," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I mean no harm." The wolf studied her, tilting its head. Then, as if satisfied, it stepped aside. She did not move until it had disappeared back into the shadows. The forest had accepted her presence, for now, but she could feel the eyes of unseen creatures watching. She had to reach the old shaman's hut by nightfall, the one person who might help her understand the strange powers awakening within her. Hours passed. Snow fell in gentle sheets, covering her tracks, hiding her from prying eyes. Yet her mind could not stop returning to Kale. He haunted her like a phantom, a man she had loved and feared, a king whose rejection had broken something deep within her. How could someone so fierce, so commanding, be blind to the life they had created together? The shaman's hut appeared suddenly, a crooked structure of wood and stone, smoke curling from its chimney. Selene approached cautiously, knocking lightly. The door creaked open, revealing an old woman with hair as white as the moonlight and eyes that seemed to see straight into her soul. "You carry more than the wind whispers, child," the shaman said without preamble, stepping aside to let her in. "Come, sit, tell me everything." Selene sank into the wooden chair, exhaustion heavy in her limbs. She told the shaman of Kale, of the night that had changed everything, and of the cruel words that had left her fleeing into the forest. She told her of the twins, though her voice trembled. The shaman listened, nodding slowly, her hands wrinkled and strong as she touched the small bell around her neck, which seemed to hum with energy. "The Alpha King is bound by more than pride, child," she said. "He is cursed, a shadow of his true heart. If he rejects you, it is not because of your worth but because of the chains of his own making. Seleni's eyes filled with tears. Then why must we suffer? Why must the children suffer? Because, the shaman replied, love is often the key to breaking the curse. And the path is never easy. You must learn to trust your strength to protect what is yours without fear. Only then can the bonds of fate be altered. The old woman handed Selene a small crystal, warm to the touch. This will guide you and protect the children. But remember, power alone does not break curses. Courage, patience, and the willingness to face the Alpha King again, these will decide your fate. Night deepened. Selene left the hut, the crystal clutched tightly in her hand. The forest seemed less threatening now, as if it recognized the power awakening within her. She walked with purpose, though her heart was heavy with longing. She knew she could not stay hidden forever. Kale would come searching, guided by instincts she could not yet understand. Suddenly the wind shifted and she felt it, a presence that made the air vibrate around her. Kale. Her heart froze. The Alpha King stepped from the shadows, his cloak sweeping the snow, his eyes fixed on her with a mixture of fury and something else, something she dared not name. Selene, he said, his voice low, rough with emotion. Why are you here? She met his gaze, refusing to bow. I am here to protect what is mine, she said quietly, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. And I will not run again. Kale's expression faltered. His jaw tightened, and for a moment the cruel words he had once spoken seemed to vanish, replaced by a vulnerability he had not known in centuries. He began, then paused. The forest seemed to hold its breath. I did not know, Selene did not answer. She could see the conflict within him, the battle between curse and heart, duty and desire. But she could not allow him to see the fear that had haunted her all these months. She would not beg for love. Instead, she turned, walking deeper into the forest, guided by the crystal's soft glow. The twins stirred within her, tiny reminders of hope and resilience. Kale followed at a distance, torn between the desire to take her in his arms and the fear that his own curse would harm her or the children. Selene, he called, his voice breaking the silence. Do not go. You are mine, we are connected, whether you see it or not. She did not respond. The shadows of the trees seemed to stretch, and the snow sparkled in the moonlight, hiding her path yet guiding her forward. She could feel Kale's presence, a gravitational pull she could neither resist nor fully trust. The twins' heartbeat echoed in her chest, and she whispered to them again, Stay strong. We will survive. We will endure. Kale stopped at the edge of a frozen river, his eyes scanning the dark forest. The wind carried her scent to him, delicate and fierce, and something inside him ached. He had rejected her once, thinking it was for her own good, thinking it would protect her from his curse. But now, seeing her strength, seeing the life she carried, he understood that his own fear had been his undoing. The forest was silent once more, save for the whispering wind. Selene's form disappeared among the trees, and Kale remained, torn between following and the fear of what he might lose, or destroy if he stepped closer. His hands clenched into fists, his heart battling centuries of pride. Finally, he whispered into the cold night, a vow meant for no ears but hers, wherever she might be. My treasures, I will find you, I swear it. And somewhere deeper in the forest, Selene felt it. Not the sound of his voice, but the weight of his words pressing against her heart. She could not see him, could not hear him clearly, yet she knew he was near. The twins stirred again, and the forest seemed to lean in, listening. Selene walked on, knowing that the path ahead was dangerous, uncertain, and filled with shadows. But she also knew this. The bond she shared with Kale, with the children she carried, was stronger than fear. And though the Alpha King had rejected her once, the seeds of destiny had already been sown. The night deepened, and the silver light of the full moon bathed the forest in a cold, ethereal glow. Somewhere beyond the shadows, Kale's eyes watched, filled with longing, regret, and a desire that could not be denied. And Selene, unaware of just how close he truly was, whispered into the darkness, "We will endure no matter what comes." The wind carried her words through the trees, and the forest seemed to echo them, holding both promise and peril. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled and Kale's heart ached. He knew the hunt had begun, not for prey, but for the woman and the children he could not yet claim. And in that moment, under the cold, unyielding light of the moon, fate shifted, and the first threads of a story that would change the kingdom were woven into the night. The forest seemed alive in a way Selene had never imagined. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of wind, felt like a voice speaking directly to her. The crystal the shaman had given her glowed softly against her chest, a warm light that pulsed in rhythm with the twins within her. She had walked for hours, yet fatigue had no hold on her. Somehow, the forest seemed to carry her forward, guiding her steps toward an unknown purpose. Selene paused at a small clearing, kneeling on the frost-covered ground. She could feel the life growing inside her, tiny sparks of energy that were more than mere movement. She placed her hand over her stomach, focusing, and for the first time she sensed something extraordinary. The twins were aware of her presence, and they were awake in a way she had never felt before. "Stay strong," she whispered softly. "We have to survive, and we have to be ready." A breeze stirred the branches above, and she felt a shiver run down her spine, not of cold but of recognition. The forest was alive with magic, and Selene realized that her own powers were beginning to awaken. She had always known her lineage was special, but until now she had not understood the depth of it. Suddenly, the shadows near the edge of the clearing shifted. Selene's hand went instinctively to the dagger at her belt, but the movement stopped her. Two figures emerged from the darkness. One was small, cloaked in gray, and the other larger, moving with the elegance of a predator. "Do not be afraid," said the smaller figure, a young woman with silver hair and eyes that shone like moonlight. "We mean no harm." Selene studied them carefully. The larger figure stepped forward, and the glow in its eyes made her gasp. It was a wolf, but not just any wolf. This one was taller than a man, its fur dark and shimmering, and its eyes held a wisdom that made her heart skip. "You are strong," the wolf said, its voice resonating in her mind rather than through the air. "And you carry a great power. The Alpha King does not yet know the truth of your strength, but he will." Selene's eyes widened. "Kale knows I exist. He knows about the twins, though he does not know where I am." Her voice was barely audible. "Why are you here?" "To guide you," said the silver-haired woman. "You cannot face the coming storms alone. Your children's power is awakening, and so must yours. The forest itself will aid you, but it tests the worthy." Selene nodded, swallowing her fear. "Then teach me. I cannot be weak. I will not let them suffer because of my weakness or because of his pride." The wolf lowered its massive head, brushing its nose against her hand. A pulse of energy ran from the beast into Selene, and suddenly she understood. She felt the currents of the forest, the flow of life and magic. It was as if she could hear the heartbeat of the world itself. She inhaled sharply, awe and fear mingling in her chest. "You are ready," the wolf said. "But beware, power awakens both light and shadow. Not all who see you will come with good intentions." Far beyond the forest, in the cold stone halls of his fortress, Kale paced. The corridors were silent, save for the distant howl of wolves echoing through the mountains. The Alpha King had not slept for days. Visions haunted him, images of Selene, her face lit by the glow of moonlight, the outline of the twins within her, tiny hands reaching toward him. He could not escape the ache in his chest. He had rejected her once, thinking it would protect her, thinking it would protect the kingdom. But the truth had begun to pierce the veil of his pride. The twins were not just his children, they were symbols of hope, of a future he had denied himself the right to dream of. Kale stopped before a window, staring out at the darkened forest. "Where are you, Selene?" he whispered. "I will not let you be lost to me, not to anyone, not to fate." The curse that had bound his heart for centuries weighed heavily upon him. He had been raised to rule without attachment, to trust nothing but strength and command. Yet now, standing in the shadowed corridors of his own making, he realized that he feared more than the enemies outside. He feared losing the woman who carried his children. Back in the forest, Selene trained. The silver-haired guide taught her to focus on the twin energies within her, to shape them and protect them. It was exhausting, but with every small success, Selene felt a surge of confidence. The twins were not simply unborn children. They were extensions of her strength, tiny beacons of magic that responded to her will. Hours became days, and Selene began to see signs. Animals of the forest approached her without fear. Branches bent to form protective canopies. Even the snow seemed to swirl around her like a shield. She knew that the power of the twins was awakening, and she understood that the forest had chosen her as its protector. Yet with power came danger. Shadows lurked, drawn to the life force of the twins. Dark spirits and creatures of the cursed lands moved just beyond the tree line, watching, waiting for a mistake. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars appeared, a sudden rustle made Selene spin. A shadow detached itself from the blackened trees, and she saw the faint shimmer of eyes. She drew a deep breath and focused, the crystal on her chest glowing. A wave of energy burst outward, and the shadow recoiled, its form dissolving into smoke. Selene's heart pounded, but she did not falter. She whispered to the twins, "We are ready. No one can harm us." Meanwhile, Kale had grown restless. Every instinct within him screamed that Selene was near, yet he could not locate her. The visions in his dreams had become stronger, more urgent, as if the forest itself called to him. For the first time in centuries, he doubted the wisdom of isolation and pride. He summoned his most trusted scouts. "Find her," he commanded, voice tight with restraint. "Do not return without news. She carries my children, nothing else matters." The scouts departed, but Kale remained by the window, staring at the forest. The moonlight glinted off the silver edges of his armor, and his mind replayed every memory of Selene. The way she had moved through the royal hall, the softness in her voice, the fire in her eyes. Every detail was etched into him, and every moment of rejection he had caused now felt like a wound bleeding into the present. Back in the forest clearing, Selene's guide knelt beside her. "The Alpha King will come," she said. "He may not understand yet, but the forest and the children will lead him. The bonds between you are stronger than pride." Selene shook her head. "I do not know if I can trust him," she said. "He rejected me. He called me unworthy. How can someone so proud change?" The guide smiled gently. "The proudest hearts are often the hardest to break and the hardest to heal, but love does not ask for permission. It demands courage, and it rewards those who endure." Selene closed her eyes, letting the forest's energy flow through her. She felt the twins stir in response, small pulses of magic mingling with her own. She could feel their potential, and it terrified her as much as it inspired her. Together, they could do more than survive. They could shape the fate of the kingdom itself. A sudden howl pierced the night. Selene's eyes snapped open. It was not an ordinary wolf's call. It was deep, commanding, and unmistakable. Her heart raced. Somewhere in the forest, Kale had come. She stood, crystal glowing brightly against her chest, and stepped into the open. Her breath caught as she saw him. Kale, the Alpha King, tall and imposing, yet there was a vulnerability in his stance, a hesitation she had never seen before. His golden eyes searched for her, and when they met hers, she felt the pull of destiny tighten around them like a chain. "You are here," he said, his voice low but steady. "I have searched, and now I see. You are stronger than I imagined." Selene did not answer immediately. She held her ground, the forest holding its breath with her. The twins stirred once more, as if sensing their father's presence. Kale took a cautious step forward. "Selene," he said, softer now, almost pleading, "I was wrong. I feared for you and I thought rejecting you would protect you, but I was blind. I cannot bear to lose you or them." Seleni's gaze softened slightly, though her voice remained firm. "I have survived without you. I will protect these children no matter what. You must understand, Kale, your pride cannot touch us here. The forest will not allow it." Kale's jaw tightened, and he took another step closer. The wind seemed to shift around him, carrying the scent of the night and the promise of change. For the first time, the Alpha King felt uncertainty. He had always been in control, yet now he realized that some things, the love he had denied, the children he had almost abandoned, were beyond control. Selene raised the crystal, and a soft glow spread across the clearing, surrounding them both. She could feel the twins' energy, a small but potent force that called to Kale in ways he could not resist. His heart ached as he reached toward her, a tentative gesture, yet full of longing. But before he could speak further, the forest shifted again. Shadows flickered at the edges of the clearing, and Selene instinctively stepped in front of him. Creatures of the cursed land, drawn to the energy of the twins, were approaching. Her pulse quickened, and she felt the twins respond, small sparks of magic igniting in her hands. Kale's eyes widened, and without hesitation, he drew his blade, golden light shimmering along its edge. "Do not touch them," he warned the shadows, his voice booming. "They are mine to protect." The air hummed with tension, the forest alive with anticipation. Selene felt a surge of power, the twins' presence merging with her own, and she realized that the battle to protect them had already begun. The night deepened, shadows moving and magic thrumming in the air. Kale and Selene stood together, the crystal between them glowing brighter than ever. The Alpha King's pride had begun to break, replaced by a longing he could no longer hide. And Selene understood that her power, the twins, and the forest itself were not only her protection. They were the bridge that could finally bring Kale back to her. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Snow fell lightly, settling on the branches like powdered glass, muffling all sound. Selene's heart pounded in rhythm with the crystal's glow against her chest. The twins were active, their presence radiating through her, their tiny pulses of energy guiding her every step. Kale stood beside her, his golden eyes scanning the shadows with razor focus. The Alpha King was no longer the distant, untouchable figure Selene had known. The cold pride in his eyes had softened, replaced by something unfamiliar, a mix of fear, longing, and determination. Together they were a force the forest itself seemed to acknowledge. But even in the quiet, danger waited. From the shadows beyond the clearing, movement stirred. Dark shapes shifted among the trees, eyes gleaming with hunger. Creatures of the cursed land, drawn to the twins' awakening power, began to emerge, their forms twisted and unnatural. "Stay behind me," Kale warned, his voice steady, commanding, yet laced with an emotion he could not hide. He drew his blade, the silver edge reflecting the pale moonlight. Selene took a deep breath, placing her hands over her stomach. The crystal pulsed brighter, a beacon of light in the darkness. She could feel the twins' power responding to her will. With a whispered command, small waves of energy rolled outward, forcing the shadows back. The creatures hissed, recoiling from the light. But they were relentless. One leapt forward, a shadowed wolf larger than any natural beast, its teeth bared. Kale's blade met its attack, sparks flying as steel struck dark fur. He moved with precision and strength, protecting Selene and the twins with every ounce of his skill. Selene concentrated, guiding the energy from the crystal into a shield around them. Light swirled in protective arcs, illuminating the forest in a soft glow. The creatures faltered, unsure how to proceed against a combination of Kale's strength and her magic. "You are stronger than I imagined," Kale said between strikes, his eyes meeting hers for a fleeting moment. I should have never rejected you." Selene's voice was calm but firm. "We survive because of what I carry, Kale, not because of your pride. Remember that." He nodded, understanding passing between them like an unspoken bond. For the first time, they fought not as king and subject, nor as man and woman, but as a family, a unit bound by purpose, heart, and the unseen threads of fate. The battle raged. Shadows twisted and lunged, yet each time Seleni's magic responded, pushing them back. Kale's movements were fluid, lethal, his sword striking with the authority of centuries of battle. Together, they were unstoppable, and slowly, the forest itself seemed to rally behind them. Branches moved to trap attackers, stones shifted to block paths, and even the wind carried whispers of encouragement to Seleni's ears. Finally, the last of the creatures dissolved into mist, retreating into the darkness. Seleni's knees trembled from exhaustion, and Kale caught her before she could fall. His arms were strong and steady around her, a protective barrier she had never thought she would know. "You fought well," he said, his voice low and rough. Your strength, it is extraordinary." Selene looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. "It is not just mine," she replied softly. "The twins, our children, they are part of this, and so is the forest." Kale's gaze softened, but shadows lingered in his eyes. "I see that now," he said. "I was blind. I let pride guide me, and I almost lost you, almost lost them." Selene shook her head. "Do not speak of loss. We are here. We are alive. That is what matters. But Kale, there is more to come. I can feel it. The prophecy, it is not finished." He frowned, his brow furrowed in thought. "Prophecy. The shaman spoke of it," Selene said. "Of a choice. Of a challenge that will decide the fate of the Alpha and his treasures. The twins' power, it awakens more than just us. Something else knows. Something ancient is stirring." Kale's hand brushed hers, hesitant yet warm. "Then we face it together," he said, the certainty in his voice strong, unwavering. "No more running, no more fear. I will not abandon you again." Selene's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the man before her was no longer the one who had cast her aside. But the forest whispered caution, reminding her that even kings could be slaves to fear and fate. Before they could speak further, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing. Snow swirled around them in a blinding flurry, and from the storm a figure emerged. Tall, cloaked in shadow, the presence radiating power older than Kale himself. Selene felt the twins stir violently, their energy pushing against the figure like an invisible shield. "You have awakened them," the voice said, deep and echoing as though carried on the wind itself. "The Alpha's children, and the bond between you threatens the balance. Do you understand what you have done?" Kale stepped protectively in front of Selene, his sword raised. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Do not harm them." The figure laughed softly, a sound that chilled even the forest's ancient spirits. "Harm them? No, not yet. But the test is upon you. You, Alpha, and you, Mother of the Treasures, prove your worth, prove your love, or all you hold dear will be taken from you." Selene's hands trembled, the crystal glowing fiercely as she instinctively sent a pulse of energy toward the figure. It recoiled, but its laughter only grew louder. Kale tightened his grip on his sword, stepping closer to her. "We will face whatever comes," he said. "No one will harm them while I draw breath. Do you understand me?" The figure paused, then inclined its head slowly. "Very well. But beware, the path will demand more than courage. It will demand sacrifice, trust, and unity. Fail, and the treasures will be lost, and the Alpha will fall into shadows deeper than any mortal heart can endure." With that, the figure dissolved into the storm, leaving only the echo of its words in the forest. Selene exhaled sharply, clutching the crystal. The twins' presence was still strong, but she could feel the tension lingering in the air. Something monumental was coming. Kale lowered his sword slightly, his expression unreadable. "A test," he murmured. "They are testing us, testing the bond between you, me, and our children." Selene nodded, exhaustion and resolve mingling in her chest. "Then we must pass, together. No matter what comes, we must not fail." Kale reached out, his fingers brushing hers. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried weight heavier than any battle he had fought. I have failed you before, he said quietly, but I will not fail again. Not you, not them. Selene allowed herself a small smile. Then let us begin together. The forest seemed to respond, the wind calming, the snow settling, as though acknowledging their unity. The twins, tiny pulses of energy aligned with the crystal's glow, forming a rhythm that echoed through Selene's very soul. She could feel it, a connection that tied the three of them together, stronger than any curse, more enduring than any fear. But even as they stood side by side, a shadow moved unseen, deeper in the forest. The ancient force that had watched their every step stirred once more, its presence a reminder that the path ahead would demand everything: heart, courage, and the willingness to sacrifice all that they loved. Selene took Kale's hand in hers, her grip firm, her eyes steady. "Whatever comes," she said, "we face it as one. Nothing will break us." Kale nodded, his golden gaze unwavering. "As one," he echoed. And then from the darkness, a deep growl rolled through the trees, a warning, a challenge, and a reminder that the trials of the Alpha and his treasures had only just begun. The forest held its breath once more, snow sparkling like stars in the pale moonlight. The storm had passed, but the night was far from over. Fate had begun its reckoning, and Selene, Kale, and the unborn twins were at the center of it. The blood moon rose over Erendor, casting the world in a crimson glow. The forest seemed to breathe with anticipation, every tree, every shadow, every whispering wind aware that something monumental was about to unfold. Selene stood in a clearing, her hand pressed gently over her stomach. The twins stirred within her, tiny sparks of energy radiating outward, mingling with the crystal she carried and the magic of the forest itself. Kale was at her side, his golden eyes scanning the horizon. The Alpha King's usual armor of pride had been stripped away, leaving only raw determination and a protective love he could no longer deny. His sword rested at his side, but his attention was entirely on Selene, on their children, and on the unseen threat that had been stalking them for weeks. "The air, it's heavy," Selene whispered, feeling the pulse of magic around them grow stronger. "Something is coming. Something older than any curse we've faced." Kale nodded, stepping closer. "Whatever it is," he said, his voice low but steady, "we face it together. No one harms you or them." The shadows shifted, and from the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in black. Its presence was immense, ancient, and filled with a power that sent shivers through even Kale's heart. This was the force the shaman had warned about, the one that tested the Alpha and his treasures. "You awaken what should have remained dormant," the figure said, its voice echoing like the tolling of a great bell. "The bond between Alpha and woman and the power of the children threatens the balance. Prove your worth. Only then shall the curse be broken." Selene tightened her grip on the crystal. The twins stirred, their energy flaring outward, small but potent bursts of magic that mingled with the forest and responded to her will. Kale stepped protectively in front of her, his sword glowing with an inner light, the legacy of his royal blood and the power of his lineage. "We will not fail," Kale said, his voice firm. "We will face whatever comes." The figure raised its hands, and suddenly the forest shifted. The ground beneath them became uneven, the snow swirling violently as if alive. Shadows elongated, forming shapes that whispered threats and ancient warnings. Selene felt her heart pound, but the twins responded with their own energy, pulsing in rhythm with her courage. "Focus on us," Selene whispered to them. "We are stronger than fear. We are stronger than shadows." Kale placed a hand over hers, feeling the pulse of magic beneath the crystal. "Together," he said, "we are one." The figure advanced, and the ground shook beneath its steps. Kale's sword met the air in precise strikes, each one dispersing a portion of the shadowed energy, but the figure was relentless. Selene concentrated, sending waves of protective magic outward, forming a barrier that shimmered with silver light. For a long moment, the forest fell silent except for the rhythm of the twins' energy and the clash of Kale's blade against the shadows. Then the figure spoke again, its voice soft but cutting. "You fight well, Alpha. You fight with strength. But strength alone does not break a curse. Only love, trust, and sacrifice can undo what fate has set in motion." Kale's eyes softened as he looked at Selene. "I understand now," he said quietly. "I was wrong to reject you. I let fear guide me and pride blind me. But I will not let you or our children suffer because of my past mistakes. I give you my heart, Selene, fully, without condition." Selene felt a warmth spread through her chest. The twins responded immediately, their energy flaring brighter, intertwining with Kale's golden aura. The forest seemed to hum in approval, the trees swaying gently despite the lingering snowstorm. "You have learned," the figure said finally, stepping closer. "But one final trial remains." The figure raised its hands and the world around them seemed to twist. The sky turned a deep shade of red, the snowstorm intensifying. Shadows coalesced into monstrous shapes, testing the strength of Kale and Selene's bond. The twins' energy pulsed violently, responding to danger, and Selene realized that their magic could protect them, but only if she remained calm and united with Kale. Kale drew closer to Selene, his hand brushing hers. "We do this together," he whispered. "I will not let go." "Not now, not ever," Selene nodded, drawing a deep breath. "Then let it begin." The shadows surged, lashing toward them like living spears, and Selene and Kale fought side by side. Kale's sword struck with precision, each movement a dance of strength and purpose. Selene's magic flowed in waves, the crystal on her chest glowing with the power of the twins, forming shields, pushing back the darkness, illuminating the forest in silver and gold. Time seemed to blur as the trial continued. The shadows tested every weakness, every fear, every doubt that lingered in their hearts. But with each strike, each wave of magic, each shared glance, Kale and Selene grew stronger. Their bond was no longer one of hesitation or fear. It was forged in trust, courage, and love. Finally, the last of the shadows dissolved into mist, leaving only silence and the gentle glow of the crystal. The forest seemed to exhale, as if acknowledging that the trial had ended. Selene sank to her knees, exhausted but unbroken. Kale knelt beside her, taking her hand in both of his. "You were incredible," he said softly. "All of you. The twins, you, me, we are stronger than anything I could have imagined." Selene smiled, leaning against him. "We endured together. That is what matters." From the shadows, the cloaked figure reappeared, its presence now less threatening, almost serene. "You have passed," it said. "The Alpha has proven his worth. The treasures are safe. The curse is broken." A soft wind stirred and the crystal's glow intensified, filling the clearing with radiant light. Selene felt the twins move, and suddenly the moment she had been waiting for arrived. Labor pains, gentle but insistent, began to course through her body. Kale's hands were immediately on hers, steady and reassuring. "It is time," he said softly. "Our treasures, our children." The forest seemed to hold its breath once more as Kale guided Selene through the birth. The twins came into the world under the blood moon, their cries small but full of power, and the light of the crystal enveloped them. Selene held them close, tears streaming down her face, and Kale pressed his forehead to hers. "They are perfect," he whispered. "Three treasures, all mine, all ours." Selene smiled through her exhaustion, looking up at him. "And we are one," she said. "No curse, no shadow, nothing can break this family." Kale lifted the twins, their small hands reaching toward him, and he felt a surge of pride and love unlike anything he had known. The forest seemed to celebrate with them, the wind carrying the whispers of approval, the trees bending gently in blessing. But even in this moment of triumph, Kale knew the world outside the forest would test them again. The prophecy had been fulfilled, the curse broken, but destiny was never truly finished. He looked at Selene, holding the twins close, and whispered, Whatever comes, we face it together. As one. Selene nodded, holding him close. Together, she echoed. The forest returned to its calm, the snow falling gently, the crystal's glow fading to a soft light. The Alpha King, once proud and distant, now stood transformed, his heart no longer bound by fear or curse. Selene, once abandoned and alone, had discovered her strength and the power within her lineage. Together, they had faced darkness, endured trials, and emerged victorious. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Kale and Selene walked hand in hand through the forest, the twins nestled safely between them. The blood moon faded, leaving only the soft glow of morning, and the world seemed brighter, lighter, filled with promise. And somewhere, deep within the forest, the shadows lingered no longer as threats, but as reminders of the trials they had faced, and the bond that had proven stronger than any darkness. Erendor would remember this day, the day the Alpha King and his treasures, united by love and courage, changed the destiny of the kingdom forever.